Oh my gosh, look at this photo from the Trump inauguration. Zuck, Bezos, Pichai, and Musk. Good thing HRT-driven Bezos is here to keep the two apart. You know, he's basically a referee at this point. If you're looking to pitch a company, this is an AI-driven simulation of 1,000 real investors and how they interact with each other on LinkedIn. Drones with tentacles are now a thing. Actually, just AI tentacles are becoming a thing. Or maybe it's more like an elephant trunk the way it moves. I don't know how to describe it. Since it didn't happen at the inauguration, AI decided to simulate the billionaire beatdown boxing match. Ooh, looks a little more evenly matched than I expected. Thanks to Neuralink-like technology, a paralyzed man has now piloted a virtual drone with his mind alone. AI is giving us new insights into how animals communicate with one another. You would not believe what the UK government just introduced. It's AI, it's named Humphrey. The world now has its first foundational model of human cognition. There's a new AI architecture that can predict human brain activity 5 seconds before it happens. And 99.7% accuracy means it's essentially a pre-crime detector.
I'm placing you under arrest for the future murder of Sarah Marks. Give the man his hand.
Nobody's calling it that, but let's just think about that for a second. I've always wondered when I watch Sora videos if it actually picked up during training how the real world physics works, or if it really just simulates physics from a 2D shape. Some researchers looked into it. I've got some interesting things to say about it now. One of my Patreon subscribers sent me this video. Maybe we give healthy gut bacteria to GPT-5 and then we get AGI? Look, humans collectively lost 2.6 IQ points to lead. We can't give up anymore. Don't take my IQ, Grimlock. The MIT Tech Review explains why Bluesky, the new social network, is nothing like any of the other ones. And there's a crazy rumor about GPT-5. The rumor mill is in full swing. Also, rumor has it that patreon.com/Dylan Curious has an amazing way for you to support this channel. You support me, Grimlock, Hobbs, basically me and my imaginary friends. Create futurism content like this. Help us get through this world where we're literally inventing intelligence for the first time in billions of years of life. All right, first up, let's talk about all these tech billionaires, people who own social media, hanging out together. Did Trump solve the alignment problem? I mean, he's the only person I've ever seen to align Bezos, Sundar Pichai, Mark Zuckerberg, and Elon. Like, have they ever been photoed together like this? That's crazy. And if I'm being honest, you really don't need Tim Cook there anymore. If you have ever been wanting to raise money and you've thought, I wonder how 1,000 venture capitalists actually interact with each other on LinkedIn, boy, do I have a visual for you. Here's all the investors before I've pitched them. Sapphire Ventures, HSBC Banking, even Plexio Capital way over here. So then I let him know that my company makes robot dinosaurs with large language models built into them. The target audience is nerds with Asperger's. And we simulate. Ooh, it's going to take 5 minutes. We'll come back after the next article. All right, drones with tentacles are now a thing thanks to AI and tentacle learning. What do you think? It can grab a ball. It can grab a bucket. Doesn't it kind of look like an elephant trunk? It's just so organic, the way it can like wrap around and grab things. And look, there's 4 of them working together to pick up objects of all different size and shape. You can even put it in a simulated environment until it's gentle enough to pick up an ant. All right, we got our sentiment score, only 43. And listen, if I can get money from 9% of these dots, oh my God, we are building it. So unfortunately, my pitch was not well received. Most investors found the robot dinosaur with large language model concept interesting, but too niche. Raised concerns about scalability. It is hardware. Market size. Yeah, I know. But there's a lot of people who like dinosaurs. And the target audience of, quote, nerds with Asperger's was seen as too narrow. What do you mean off-putting by some? Actually, I think I know what you mean. Off-putting, yeah. It was a little off-putting. All right, let's run it again, but just nerds this time. We'll see if a broader audience makes a difference. And while we wait for that, we can watch an AI-generated boxing match between 2 of the world's richest people. Zuckerberg, Elon Musk. Turns out after the inauguration, AI decided to, just put him in the cage. Why wait for the real thing when we have AI video now? You can see the predictions from the AI video are showing pretty evenly matched. It looks like Elon's pretty good at blocking a lot of those hits. They both really go pound for pound at the face. Elon seems to be bringing more technology to the fight than Zuck. Some kind of super powerful hand glove there. Ooh, hits him on the face, but they both go down. It's hard to wield power like that. There's Arnold Schwarzenegger just enjoying himself. All right. And they end up both losing to Will Smith. What a twist. All right. Big difference in our refined pitch. We're now up to 14% positive. The attention score went up. Oh, we have some recommendations here. Replace nerds with a broader term like families or educational settings. It recommends I say imagine life-size robot dinosaurs that can teach their kids about history. You think I'm going to build a life-size version of this and sell it to a kid? So being paralyzed does not necessarily mean you can't be a drone pilot anymore. Okay, now the way it worked is this man who has the brain implant was imagining how he would move his fingers, and that signal, even though it wasn't moving his fingers because he's paralyzed, it was actually being sent out to the virtual environment and controlling the drone in the way that he wanted. So this was part of a clinical trial. It was called Brain to Gate, and it's meant to help people with paralysis control devices using their brain signals. But what's cool about this is it's a bit of a breakthrough in the fact that it's the first time that an implant decoded individual finger groups, letting him move a drone throughout an obstacle course with much more precision than expected. Listen, nobody wants to mess with Professor X. That man is dangerous. Could Professor X beat the Hulk in a fight? Yeah, Professor X in theory can concentrate and establish a psychic link. He might be able to shut down the Hulk's mind or calm him back down into Bruce Banner. But the Hulk's power is practically limitless, and his intense rage, trauma, and Banner's fragmented psyche can sometimes provide partial resistance to psychic control. Oh man, in short, it's a toss-up. I thought this was a no-brainer. We've got some new AI insights into animal communication. There's a nonprofit called the Earth Species Project, and it's been trying to use AI to crack the code on animal communication. So it helps us understand how animals are communicating with each other through language, or probably not language, but sounds, vocal sounds. Oh, maybe it's language. I don't know where to draw the line on that kind of thing. But it's cool. The project's actually backed by big donors like Reid Hoffman and Lauren Jobs, and they have launched a new AI tool called the Natural LM Audio to analyze animal sounds. We might interpret animal sounds when you translate it to English in a human way, but they're not humans. So the way two crows might be like, chirping at each other, there's like nuance in their world that doesn't quite make sense to us initially. And this model is trying to figure that out so that we can understand like what they're going to do in their environments to each other. And I just thought that was a super interesting project for artificial intelligence to tackle. All right, so the UK government is officially rolling out artificial intelligence. So they introduced an AI assistant suite. It is called Humphrey. Honestly, I'm not opposed to it. It kind of sounds like a UK name to me. And they're hoping that it will lead to better data sharing between departments to boost efficiency. But all in all, I don't think it's got a great chance of being useful, but I do think it's worth trying. And there's something about getting AI into bureaucracy that might work eventually. And I think it's a good muscle to exercise either way. Ignacio de Gregorio wrote an article called "An AI Model of Human Cognition is Here, Understanding the Human Mind Closer Than Ever." And it's talking about a very interesting model. It is called Centaur. It is built by a bunch of different schools and companies, including Google's DeepMind. So what it does is it predicts a human behavior before it's going to happen. And it does that even for actions and decisions that it hasn't seen before. It can even align with brain activity patterns, like literally matching fMRI scans to predict how parts of the brain are active during a task. The data set that it was trained on is called Psych 101, which includes 10 million human choices across 160 psychological experiments. And probably what's most interesting about it is its architecture. Its internal workings align surprisingly well with human brain activity without being explicitly trained on brain activity. It's like acting like humans, and then you look at the architecture and it kind of looks like a human brain. So these researchers are claiming that it's a big leap towards building a unified theory of cognition that bridges psychology and artificial intelligence. Getting to know this model with some of those tools that we've seen before for explainability, like the autoencoders, it feels to me like this is going to unwrap the human mystery of how the brain works. And probably figure out how the brain works, meaning there won't even be privacy in your own head soon. And there will be a model that knows what action you're going to take before you take it. And that is a very different world than any of us have ever really imagined deeply. But as if that wasn't enough, there is now transformers that can predict brain activity patterns 5 seconds into the future using just 21 seconds of fMRI data. This is kind of like those models like 11 Labs where you can just like feed it a few minutes of your voice and it can just keep talking like you now that it knows what you sound like. Except it's your brain waves. It's using fMRI data, and then it predicts future brain states up to about 5 seconds ahead. And it does it based on only about 21 seconds of prior data. So the goal of the paper is to cut down on fMRI scan times for a patient. Like you can just scan their brain for a little bit and then like infer the rest with AI models. And it can pave the way for some cool brain computer interface stuff. And yeah, look, it's really hard to get fMRI scans. It's like pretty intimidating sitting in a machine like that. Like for kids who need scans, that might be a great thing because they just can't be in there. People are super claustrophobic. But talk about opening up a can of ethical dilemmas too, you know what I mean? Okay, so I've always been fascinated when watching Sora or videos or Kling or Vio. If an AI that watched a lot of video of the three-dimensional world and understanding how physics works, because when you film a video, there's like gravity and atoms and electromagnetism and all the things that are real. So does it actually learn physics or does it learn videos of physics? So this research is really interesting. It asks, do generative video models learn physical principles from watching videos? Okay, so to investigate this, they have a really interesting idea. The researchers developed something called the Physics IQ Benchmark. It is a data set that is designed to assess the understanding of concepts like gravity, fluid dynamics, magnetism, and do it all through a prediction task. And it seems like it doesn't really know physics, but there's an asterisk on that. So the study finds that while current models can produce visually realistic videos, their physical understanding of the real world remains weak. So even though these models are getting good at knowing when an object is sort of in front of another object, or when you drop something that's got like a glass of water, it's liquid in it, it knows that the glass is hard and the liquid is wet. It doesn't really know that yet. And that doesn't mean that no model can do it. Like remember, these are only virtual eyes. If there was the equivalent of a virtual hand that could like reach into the videos and play with things, or a virtual hand that does play with objects in reality, and then eyes that watch videos like this, and then you combine the models, it very well could pick up the physical principles. So I'm sure this will be solvable at some point. I just always wondered if you could actually learn the physical world without being in the physical world. And it seems like you kind of can't. So Ethan Mollick on LinkedIn says, new randomized control trials by the World Bank of students using GPT-4 as a tutor in Nigeria. 6 weeks of after-school teacher-led AI tutoring increased test scores by 0.3 standard deviations. And that is equivalent to 2 years of typical learning gains, outperforming 80% of other educational interventions. Whoa, and look at that. He even gets this reply from Mustafa Suleiman. This is exactly why I'm so passionate about AI. I mean, it probably doesn't hurt that he makes like $1 million a year at Microsoft, but I'm just saying. Opening up access and opportunities for people, even more astounding when you take into account that many of these students had never even used a computer before. The most meaningful takeaway to me, students who participate also perform better on their end-of-year curricular exams. And those exams cover topics well beyond those addressed in the 6-week intervention. So I don't know, in contrast to the idea that leaning on LLMs is making us like stupid, also, LLMs, when you use them for educational purposes, are an amazing tool. All right, Anton, what's up? You should be checking out this guy on YouTube. He posted a video called Direct Connection Between the Gut Microbiome and Human Intelligence. Not exactly the route I usually think to affect human intelligence, but I am changing my mind. So these gut bacteria in our stomach, they're not just there to help you digest your food. They have been living in our guts for so long that we essentially have like a symbiotic relationship with them. And scientists are now learning more and more about how what they do influences how we think, how we feel, and what we do. So research is showing that there is actually influence from the health of our gut bacteria on everything from sleep and hunger to brain functions. And the way this works is they now have evidence of the specific molecules that are making it and predicting when a baby will eat, poop, sleep, and it sets up these lifelong patterns for how they feel and think and act. That's not a thing that anybody like all these things about raising kids or like parenting, like who's like, oh, I like really focused on like healthy gut bacteria. Maybe we should be. And here's another kicker. They're even connecting some of these microbiome differences to autism and anxiety. Experiments even show that anxiety-inducing microbes can transfer social fear to mice. So I read this book. This is Jonathan Hadett's Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. And now I kind of want to reconsider if part of it is actually about that generation growing up in a time where there was so many like disinfectants and sort of fake food and weird chemicals that maybe the bacteria and the diets just weren't like full of fiber and healthy natural foods. If some of that might have led also to the most anxious generation in human history. And another thing that was completely new until I heard this video was that gut microbes also might have helped humans develop bigger brains. That's right. It seems like there are some microbes and the byproduct of what they produce actually prioritizes the brain energy over storing fat. All right, so Dr. Allen is writing about how widespread use of large language models such as ChatGPT, used for email, trivia, research, life administration, already seem to be fostering distinct mental shortcuts that may lower our cognitive fitness. Like, we have seen a big hit to human intelligence before. This is so sad to read. Did you know that because of lead in our environment, the average person lost 2.6 IQ points? Like, we are literally making society stupid. I mean, I'm glad we have lead out of there, but like, wow, that's crazy that even happened. That's a staggering 824 million points worldwide when you multiply it by all the people who got stupider. What? How much GDP is that across the world? The lead company owes the world trillions of dollars for that mistake. Certain birth cohorts in the 60s and 70s were hit especially hard, with some individuals losing 7.4 IQ points, enough to shift them into the range of intellectual disability. All right, so this is the paper he's referencing: AI Tools in Society, Impact on Cognitive Offloading and the Future of Critical Thinking, which seems to really focus in on young people, how they are especially heavy users of this kind of technology already. And it seems to be lowering their engagement with deeper thinking compared to older folks who rely less on artificial intelligence. So the takeaway is that AI is super convenient, but over-reliance on it might come at a cost to our mental sharpness. I was telling you guys in the last video, like, I'm no exception to that. I am wondering if I'm getting, you know, a little bit stupider. I kind of feel like I can't do the same sort of like cognitive workload I could 10 years ago. I don't know. It's freaking me out, kind of. All right, let's talk about social media, the algorithms that run them. For all of this talk about Twitter and Facebook and TikTok and free speech and like free places to go being like a town square on the internet, why is it that we always talk about the way the content's moderated, but not the way the algorithm works? Like, why is it okay that the company decides that? If we could pick the algorithm we want that can lean in any direction we want, or it can focus on education, and I don't know if it's going to work, but I think it's important that you know that there is something different about Bluesky. It's got a different protocol. It's got different plumbing. It's a bit of a different beast. Now, unfortunately, the actual experience of Bluesky wasn't everything that I hoped it would be. I mean, it doesn't feel to me like it's a robust ecosystem yet, but I guess it's kind of like decentralized cryptocurrencies. Like, sometimes you're rooting for something because you know how it could affect the world more so than what it is right now. And Bluesky is built on an open protocol. It is called the AT protocol, meaning anybody can create and customize their own version of the social media platform. I just think it's interesting. Like, it's a nonprofit governance. It's got redundant servers. It's got a community-driven ecosystem. It's like the social media version of Wikipedia, and I hope it works. Imagine actually having control over what your own attention is going to. Like, I don't know, maybe it doesn't live up to the expectations, but like, imagine how cool it'd be if there wasn't like a corporate interest like trying to steal your attention all the time. All right, you ready for the GPT-5 rumor mill? Alberto Romero is doing that for us with this article. All right, here's the rumor. There's already GPT-5 over at OpenAI, just the public doesn't have access to it yet. That could be plausible, very realistic, but they're not releasing it to the public. Why, you might ask? Because it turns out that it's more valuable to them if they keep it internal. If OpenAI is keeping it hidden, they could use it to supercharge smaller, cheaper models through a process called distillation. That's where you make smaller models, like maybe O3, even though it seems big, it might be a lot smaller than GPT-5, and especially like O3 Mini, and they perform insanely well, but they still stay affordable to run. So if they want to ask some internal questions, maybe they want to code their own systems, they want to make the app better, they might actually be going to GPT-5. And then they're also using it to export all of this training data for the GPT-3o models. Obviously all speculation. And from a financial point of view, it could just be that GPT-5 is just super expensive to run, and you can only use it for really incredibly important things. And if your competitors don't have it, then they can't code as fast as you, or maybe like think as deeply as you. And you saw OpenAI is now putting out some like science research. They're getting into longevity. Like maybe they're getting some of that stuff from their GPT-5 model. I don't know. I mean, do you think OpenAI would be prioritizing long-term dominance? I mean, what if they make their best technology a secret weapon instead of a product? Second chance to join my Patreon /Dylan Curious in case you missed it the first time. You can also hit that join button right under this video if you're on YouTube, and then that's basically the same thing. It's like a membership model, super helps the channel. All right, and the last concept I wanted to share was a little more abstract, a little more ethereal. It's from Matt Fujimoto. It is called Unifying the Way We Experience Reality. Amori Shozo as a new evolution in Japanese philosophy. But I love the philosophy, even if I can't pronounce the name. All right, so that word is actually a person. His name is Omori. He is a Japanese philosopher, and he turned the usual way that we think about experiencing the world on its head. Okay, so starting from the baseline, what he's saying is the average person would probably prefer to experience something than just imagine it. Right, like you'd rather be at a beautiful sunset, feel it, smell the air, sense it, than you would just have a friend tell you that story. But Amori is actually arguing that all forms of experience, whether it's sensory, whether it's imaginative, whether it's mental, are all equal. They're equally valid, and then he introduces this concept of manifestations, which are these rich, interconnected experiences that blend what you experience together. And you have to remember that if you actually experience something and then you relive it in your mind, it isn't happening. You're not sensing it again. In a sense, it's like a manifestation in his terms. Not the usual way you'd use manifestation, but this idea of it all blending together to become a perception. So for example, he says that seeing a river, remembering it, or imagining it are all manifestations. And they should not be ranked, but instead unified. And by doing this, he pushes the Japanese philosophy in a new direction, grounding it in everyday experiences and incorporating modern linguistic and analytic perspectives. I mean, it challenges how probably you think, at least how I do, if you're Western, we have a mind-body dualism in our culture, in the way that we think, in the way that we would naturally rank something like that. But what if it's not a hierarchy? What if it's a web? And what if scrolling through photos or reading about something or imagining something really are equivalent to being there? That's like the Ready Player One world. And then what if images that are inside of artificial intelligence systems and they're producing or thinking are actually kind of alive in the same way we are? I don't know. There's no right answer to stuff like that, but let me know in the comments below what you think, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.